stupendous steam.
Imagine how you feel in the following situation. You're at the World Trade Center in New York on the 100th floor, and you step onto an elevator with a bunch of other people. The elevator doors close, the elevator starts to go down. And all of a sudden, the elevator goes into a free fall. Your stomach is in your throat. Everyone's face is white as a sheet. And the intercom crackles on, and the lobby guard downstairs says, "Ladies and gentlemen, I have terrible news. The cable has snapped. There's nothing we can do. Your death will be relatively painless. God bless you all. Goodbye." That's how I feel right now. You know, I still get nervous speaking in front of groups, and I've been trying to read books, book after book after book, to figure out how I can get rid of these butterflies that happen before I get up to speed. And I've read all these books, and what I found out is that there's a lot of bad advice out there, a lot of bad advice. I think the worst advice they can give you, and you see it everywhere, is this: relax. Just relax. Take deep breaths. Now, that's about as good as the advice as they give you on an airplane when you're going down in flames and they say, put the oxygen mask on your face and breathe normally. I'm lobbying with the FAA to have that changed to put the oxygen mask on your face and breathe desperately. Then grab onto the person next to you and scream convincingly. You know, Toastmasters has helped me get over that fear of public speaking. It's gotten rid of that nervousness a lot for me. But Toastmasters has done something for me that's even more important. It's gotten me dates. I've dated a lot of Toastmasters women, and when you date somebody from Toastmasters and you take her out to dinner, it's a lot like a Toastmasters meeting. You go to dinner and you sit down and you order some drinks, and she starts with the table topics. How do you feel about marriage? How do you feel about kids? How do you feel about big engagement rings? And I always say, how do you feel about paying for half the meal? And then it usually launches into the formal speaking portion where she tells you that you can still be liberated and not have to pay for half the meal, which I appreciate very much. And then when the meal is over, I go to take her home, and I suggest that I come back to her place for the benediction. That's usually when the meeting is adjourned. You know, Toastmasters have given me a lot more confidence with women. I mean, before Toastmasters, I would go to a nightclub, and I would see a woman standing there, and she'd be standing outside a dance floor like this. Right? She wants to dance. And she's looking around for partners, and I would go up to her and I'd say, "Hi, would you like to dance?" And she'd say, "No." And I would slink away. But I came to Toastmasters. I improved my skills, I built my self-esteem, my confidence went up to here, and I go back to that club now, and I see that woman, she's dancing outside that dance floor, and I walk up and say, "Hi, would you care to dance?" She says, "No." And I say, "I was just feeling sorry for you." You know, my mother wants me to stop dating. She would like me to get married. Now wait a minute. My mother falls to her knees every night and prays that I'll get married. Now my mother is a wonderful person. She is fantastic. My mother has this unique way about her. I went over to my parents' house recently, and I went into one of the bedrooms, and there was a gallery of pictures of everyone in the family. And there were my two brothers, and the pictures documented their lives, from babies through grade school and high school and college. And there were two pictures of me. One at age 5, and then it skipped all the way to like when I was 25. And I said to my mother, Mom, how come the pictures document my brother's lives, every stage of their lives, and you only have 2 of me? And she said, you haven't changed that much. My mother is a wonderful person. My mother is selfless. She's directed towards other people. In fact, I thought about it recently, and I realized that my mother was put on the earth to help sick Jewish people. My mother knows more sick Jewish people than the Blue Cross has subscribers. And it's strange, my mother, Harriet Ozer, can be anywhere in the world and just walk by a hospital. She doesn't even have to go in the hospital. My mother can just be anywhere, walk by a hospital, and somebody will throw open a window and go, Harriet! Harriet! I won't be in the synagogue this week. My mother will be like, Mona, is that you? Yes, Harriet, yes. Well, Mona, is there anything I can do for you? Well, Harriet, I'll tell you. You know, I get out of here next Wednesday. What do you say you take me to the hairdresser? My mother has taken more people to the hairdresser than there are hairdressers. And last year, the National Hairdressers Association gave my mother their annual transportation award. Which I thought was really great. My mother has an uncle named Morris. And to me, he's always been Uncle Morris. And Uncle Morris is a unique kind of guy. Uncle Morris, he wears his pants up to here. And Uncle Morris asked me if I would speak to his synagogue group tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. And I really didn't want to do it. I mean, I just didn't want to do it, but he's my uncle, so I told him I would do it. And I said to him last week, Uncle Morris, how many people do you think you'll get at the breakfast? He says, Stevie, well, I'll tell you. They don't come out when it snows. And they don't come out when it's cold. Now, when it rains, they don't come out. I said, Uncle Morris, when do they come out? He said, when there's food. You know, Toastmasters people, the people in this audience are fantastic people, and I have learned so much from these people, and I've gotten so much out of them, that I think the least I can do is to talk about some of them in public. There's a guy in the audience tonight, his name is Tex Knight. Now, Tex is not from Texas, and Tex Knight has never lived in Texas, and as far as I know, Tex Knight has never even visited Texas. But his name is Tex Knight, and I always wondered, how did he get that name? The guy lives in Delaware County. Well, I finally did some research, and I figured out how he got his name, and I'm here to tell you for the first time tonight how Tex Knight got his name. Tex was born about 60 years ago on December 31st at 11:59 p.m. And his father was ecstatic because his father knew that he had another tax deduction for the prior year. Tex had just made it in the nick of time, 11:59 p.m. And his father, overcome with joy, ran outside of the hospital into the cool, clear night, and he threw his hands up in the air and he looked up and he said, my God, what a wonderful tax night! Now, over the years, tax sounded a lot like Tex, and that's how I got his name. There's another guy in the audience named Steve Kane. And Steve is relatively new to Toastmasters, and Steve is a wonderful guy. He's a good guy. And I came to a meeting, and Steve was there for the first time. And I gave a speech, and I was really happy with this speech. I really felt good about it. And I sat down, and somebody passed me a note. And I opened the note, and it said, that was the best speech I have ever heard in my entire life. Steve King. And I looked up at Steve and I smiled, nodded my head, and I said, thank you. And I closed the note and realized it was for Paul Reitman. You've all heard Marvin Bryant tonight. And Marvin Bryant determined. Have you ever heard Marvin's contest speech that he did 2 years ago, where he won? It was incredible. Let the games begin. And a little girl runs up the stairs, the torch held high in hand, and the flames are everywhere, and the Olympic Games have begun. I think Marvin is terrific. And I went up to Marvin after that speech and I said, Marvin, you are so great. Can I come to your church next Sunday and hear you speak? I mean, I'm Jewish. I don't know if that's a problem. Could I come to your church to hear you speak? And Marvin said, we would love to have you this Sunday at our church. So I was elated, and I went to Marvin's church, and he had a special cage for me in the back. But he gave it the personal touch. It had a sign on it that said, please do not feed the Jew. I appreciated that very much. There's a woman, she's not here tonight, her name is Diane Sokot. And Diane is great because Diane says what's on her mind. She doesn't pull any punches. Right? I was at an event for the American Heart Association, and Diane was there, and Diane had a couple of drinks in her. And she walked up to me and she said, I never liked you. So I appreciated that very much. There's a guy in this room tonight, his name is Bernard Dude. Keep it down. Bernard attends Toastmasters more regularly than any other Toastmaster annually. He comes out. What you might not know about Bernard is the most expert evaluator we have. He can evaluate your speech while you're doing it. Through a series of sounds, noises, drumming his pencil on the table, drumming his fingers, Bernard lets you know how you're doing so you can correct it as you go. There's another woman in the group tonight. Her name is Muriel Williams. Muriel is the toughest table topics master I have ever seen. When Muriel gets up to do table topics, people tremble. I'll never forget the time that Muriel walked up to the podium for table topics and she said, how do you feel about Purple Thursday? That was the first time in my life I've ever seen Paul Reitman speechless. I think my favorite person in the group, if I can say it, is a man named Roy Beatty. Roy Beatty is the best, and the reason I like Roy Beatty is he will laugh at anything. I could be completely bombing, and he will be doubled over with laughter. I take Roy with me to contests, and I place him in the middle, in the back, center, so that he sort of gets the ball rolling. He is the portable Ed McMahon. You may not know this, but Roy met his wife at Toastmasters, Nora Beatty. And I will never forget the time that Roy and Nora were both at Toastmasters, and Nora went up to the podium as table topics master, and she called on Roy and she said, how do you feel about marriage? How do you feel about kids? How do you feel about big engagement rings? I've had a lot of fun here tonight, and I want to leave you with just a very, very brief example of what Toastmasters has done for me. I did a speech last week in Westmont, New Jersey, a civic group. I mean, this is far from Delaware County. And after the speech, this very attractive young lady came up to me and she said, are you the same Steve Ozer who won the 1988 humorous speech contest for Toastmasters? I said, that's right. She She said, are you the same Steve Ozer who won the 1989 humorous speech contest for Toastmasters? I said, you got it. She said, are you the same Steve Ozer who came in first place in comedy night at the Royce Hotel in Philadelphia? I said, that's me. She said, I never liked you.
Motor Trend's Import Car of the Year.
Some of the aerodynamics on the car in front of him